The Land of Pan. I now want to tell some stories to help you understand more fully what I'm talking about. These can be very entertaining stories if you can release fear and doubt and realize that the popular opinion of the history on Earth is not entirely accurate. Man has, as I have said, tried to get out from under his responsibility on Earth in many ways. Pretending he cannot remember things that he doesn't want to remember is one of his main attempts at this. This has even gone to the extent of doctoring history so that it sounds better. This has not really worked, though, as quite a few people have felt that straightforwardness is lacking, and it is. Many people presently deny so much that they have only a small, narrow opening through which information can be received. This has to be reversed now because it has reached dangerous proportions on Earth. These stories of the past will help open your channels so that you can begin remembering what you have denied for so long. In the beginning, when spirits first entered the Earth, it was in a land called Pan, which is now under the Pacific Ocean. In the land of Pan, no one had to earn a living. Everything sprang forth without effort. Every need was met by simply desiring it to be met, and the form in which it was met often surprised and delighted the spirits there. For example, a spirit only needed to say, "I'm hungry," and something delicious to eat would appear, oftentimes in a form that had never been seen before. If a spirit wished to bathe, a pool at just its favourite temperature would appear, having all the things about it that this spirit particularly liked. If a group of spirits wished to swim, the pool would have everything everyone wanted. In the beginning, all the spirits could change forms, and though some had more mastery at this than others, all could do it. It was not unusual at that time for a spirit to do acrobatics on the way to a pool, with arms and legs, and then upon diving into the water, transform legs into a fishtail, if swimming was more fun in that form. If, later, there was a desire to fly, wings would appear. Some spirits began taking this freedom and abundance for granted. They received without feeling gratitude, and even began to use these gifts to their own advantage. Hoarding of the abundance and the use of form to present the self as other than what it was were two ways in which these gifts were abused. Earth was created to be a living fairy tale without any shadow of evil or doubt. The ones abusing the gifts were not understanding how it was meant to be on Earth, and did not accept or even like Earth's intended way. They did their best to make the Earth spirits feel like their fairyland was not real. And to the spirits denying Earth, it was not real because they held a different reality. These spirits had home planets other than Earth, which they could not find, and had come to Earth because they were lost. They would not admit this, however. Instead, these spirits acted superior and said they had come to protect Earth and all the spirits on Earth that insisted on living in this silly fairy tale with no protection from what was really going on in creation. Shortly before this time, there had been a war in the heavens. The fairies and elves, brownies and pixies, dwarves and gnomes, mermaids, and all other fairy folk on Earth had felt that the war was over, and they were in a healing, celebrating mood. These other spirits that claimed they had come to protect them did not want the war to be over. These spirits were warriors that had emerged during the war in the heavens because they loved to fight, and the fighting had called them forth. The Earth spirits had emerged earlier than the warriors, in a great burst of golden light, and had gone off to Earth before I had taught them everything that they needed to know to be on their own. Some of the older rainbow spirits, and some angels too, had gone with them, because they really weren't ready at that time to be on their own. All of these spirits coming to Earth had one thing in common. They had all felt rebellious towards me, because they believed I had let the lack of self-acceptance among my different kinds of spirits go to an unnecessary extreme, and this lack of self-acceptance had eventually resulted in the war in the heavens. I now want to give a short synopsis of what happened on Earth, so that you can understand how the Earth got to be so dense and slow that magic seems lost and manifesting and changing form seem difficult and slow. This is also how it happened that nearly everyone now feels they have to work for a living or inherit money. If Earth spirits feel their true feelings, they feel that Earth is not the way it was or the way they really want it to be, but that everything has become a compromise instead. Long ago in Pan, the air smelled of flowers, and the earth was soft with mosses, grasses, and sandy beaches. The rocks were gemstones, and the waters were liquid light that sparkled and danced. The weather and even the seasons changed in reflection of the moods of the spirits. The harmony manifested as music. Even the wind in the trees and the waves on the shores gave rhythm to the melodies. The monkeys and cats and all the birds sang and danced with the fairy folk. The fish and the mermaids even sang in the seas. Everything glowed with coloured lights during the golden day and also during the soft blue night. Desire manifested reality so easily that a loving spirit could extend a hand towards a tree, and that tree would flower immediately. Reality changed magically, affected by every spirit's feeling of how it should be. I have to speak lyrically here, because Pan was so magical, musical, and free. Earth allowed entry of many spirits that claimed they wanted to be part of this reality, but many of these spirits only came to disagree with Earth about how it should be. They invaded Earth and claimed they did not. The rebellious ones, already there, had too much fear to ask me to make it clear. They feared that I was angry at them for leaving me too soon. I had sent other teachers, and so they assumed I had sent these warriors too. These fairy folk were new children in creation, and didn't know that the warriors had another place they were supposed to go. They did not understand that the warriors would draw conflict anywhere they would go, because the warriors carried the conflict within themselves. The warriors claimed they were just barely in the nick of time to beat back the danger that was always near and protect these silly spirits that refused to see what actually lurked behind every tree. The truth of the matter was that these warriors brought with them to Earth their own reality, and did find danger lurking everywhere just because that was how they wanted it to be. The more the warriors found danger on Earth, the more the other spirits began to fear that the warriors really had reason to be near. The more that all the spirits began to fear, the harder it was for them to stay clear. Then the warriors began to control them and tell them what they had to do to be protected appropriately. These spirits also had fear that they could not depend on me any more for what they had received earlier, or for what they thought creation was meant to be. They no longer felt sure that joy and freedom had much allure. They feared that stories had to have villains to hold interest for me. They thought I didn't look much to Earth, because what they'd been doing there didn't have much worth. They made judgments here that changed their reality. It was no longer considered appropriate to be wild and free. Everyone now was supposed to be orderly. No one, the warriors said, was supposed to hear directly from me. Instead, I had sent them to head the situation on Earth, and I, they said, had asked them to protect Earth from realities that held secret dread. An understanding needed here is that step by step, the warriors led Earth exactly where it dreaded to be. Everyone on Earth still tried to be gay and say they still could live in the same old way. The warriors said they had saved the day. The Earth spirits felt they couldn't be sure. The warriors wanted earthlings to live by rules because, they said, we can't protect unpredictable fools. The head of the warriors then said, there are so many marauding spirits flying around, we need more protection than what we've already found. He called for more protection over and over, so loud and long that Earth finally did respond. He was not completely wrong either, for as long as the warriors were here, they always had to increase the protection. The warriors have a purpose in my creation, and I'm not unloving toward them, but their right place is not on Earth. The warriors have a conflict to resolve in themselves, and they create an outer reality that reflects this. The Earth finally answered the head warrior's cry by placing protective fire dragons in the sky. These fire dragons had taken on an intimidating form that was huge enough to encircle the Earth. Their breath of fire blew away spirits they didn't want to enter the Earth. But they didn't remove any that were already there. They did not believe it was right. The fire dragons denied their true feelings, though. There were many on Earth that they wanted to send away. The fire dragons could have removed them too if they'd accepted their own true feelings. Instead, the fire dragons held in their true feelings towards Earth and only expressed towards spirits trying to enter for the first time. These denied feelings became dense within them because they were not allowed to move. The fire dragons had to take turns in the sky and go to the fire sea in the centre of the Earth to purify. They got there through secret passageways that only the fire dragons knew, and in the fire sea they purified themselves of what had made them too dense to hang in the sky. The fire dragons found it necessary to purify only because they had denial that wasn't receiving my light. The fire dragons even denied enough to allow one of them to be treacherous and foul. This fire dragon in actuality feared his own worth. He externalized his judgment against himself by seeing right place as a judgment of worth, which it is not. Right place in my creation is what really feels best, and all of Earth's troubles have loss of right place as part of the basic cause. This fire dragon did not accept my creation, and in fact wanted my job. This fire dragon wanted to have everything ordered and mechanistic. He had his own version of right place and disguised his true purpose by saying, "No one should judge that way. Let all spirits enter, let all spirits stay." The other fire dragons did not accept their true feelings enough to tell him to leave Earth. He didn't feel good to them, and his words didn't ring true, but their own denial did not let them know what to do. They asked him to leave, and he refused. He said they were judging him and the others he wanted on Earth. He intimidated the other fire dragons because he was the biggest, and he turned his fire on them, which none of the others did. He was asked not to allow any spirits onto Earth unless the other fire dragons approved. The other fire dragons acted by consensus, and he refused. Meanwhile, the warriors began refusing to protect Earth for free. The warriors were demanding gifts and service from others. They had only to ask me for anything, but they wouldn't not ask because they believed I was unapproachable. In this way, they were taking light from others instead of receiving from me. Gratitude was missing. They all complained, and the more they complained, the more they decided they needed to reward themselves. The Earth spirits felt they were having to agree to more and more controls and less abundance for themselves. They all had seeds of denial in themselves that were allowing this to happen. They had fear which they covered with anger. Their fear of me did not allow them to come to me for help. Called out my name and said they were asking for my help, but they had so much fear of me that they could not let in any answers for fear of what they might hear. They feared I would not give them the answer they wanted to hear. They did not know that I would have. They secretly dreaded and feared that their rebelliousness and leaving me for Earth before I said they were ready was reason for me to have sent controls and what seemed like punishment. I did not do this, and yet I could not help Earth spirits because they had too much fear and guilt to hear me on the subject. Meanwhile, the warriors had too much denied fear to hear me either. The older spirits I had sent to help were not being accepted for the same reasons I was not. These spirits were now even being attacked because they reminded the others of me too much. Because they had denied so many feelings, and denied so many feelings about me, these younger spirits wanted to get rid of anything that reminded them of it. The treacherous fire dragon took advantage of everyone's confusion. He suggested that the spirits on Earth have a big party and invite everyone and resolve their differences and celebrate what they had. Focus on the positive was the theme. He even volunteered to guard Earth alone that night. The other fire dragons did not trust him. They decided they would take turns guarding with him that night. One of the fire dragons, though, could not stand being on duty with this treacherous one, and when it was his turn, his essence slunk off into the fire sea and left only his form on duty. He did not feel good doing this, but his own denials did not allow him to find another way to exercise his own free will. The treacherous fire dragon immediately took advantage of this situation. He had been preparing for it and hoping it would come his way. In his off-duty hours, he had been communing with another force that opposed me. The minute he realized he was alone that night, he called to that force and let it onto the Earth. He thought he was about to gain control of all of Earth because he thought he could control that force and have it intimidate Earth for him. The force, however, had another spirit already controlling it that this fire dragon did not recognize because of his own power delusions. This force was a hot, dry, raging, cosmic wind of destructive anger. This hot, dry wind raged across the face of Pan that night and sent the partying ones scurrying for shelter. This hot, dry wind burned off vegetation, seared great cracks into the land, and made it unbearably hot and steamy on Earth. Its raging fingers reached into the Earth itself, causing volcanoes and earthquakes. The fire dragon that thought he was about to take over found himself scorched instead and thrown to the earth like a discarded rag doll. He writhed in agony and finally broke off from his pain by leaving his form and slinking off to hide the rest of himself in a cave. The hot, dry wind could not stay in one place. It raged on, seeking destruction every place it went until it burned out. The earth spirits did not know if it would return or not. They feared even more now because they felt that they could not depend on anything. They had more fear of me now because they didn't know how the hot, dry wind came to Earth. They sought the fire dragons and asked them. Both involved denied having anything to do with it, and the treacherous one claimed he had suffered terribly trying to defend Earth. The other fire dragons did not know anything about it. The head warrior only said that the protection already existing was obviously not enough. The Earth recovered from this as best it could, but the land was not as abundant nor as beautiful as it had been, because the spirits had scars from their experience that they couldn't heal yet, and reality reflected this. As the spirits healed the Earth and themselves, they began to return to their old ways and find joy again. In seeking their old ways, they also sought old friends, and when many of them could not be found, they felt a growing sense of horror. The spirits on Earth had not encountered death before, and they didn't know if they were encountering it then, but they had a definite sense of things not being right on Earth. They had a strong feeling that they needed to find their friends to know what had happened to them. The hot, dry wind had left a spirit on Earth that had not been here before. When the spirits of Pan found him in their search for missing friends, he claimed he had come to help heal the Earth. The Earth spirits did not know what he was or what he was doing, but they knew that he frightened them. He said he was a wizard that had come to Earth to help heal it because he had experience with the hot, dry wind. He lied here. He did not come to heal the Earth, but he did have experience with the hot, dry wind. He was its master. The hot, dry wind was the raging fire of an entire universe that had destroyed itself with its own destructive anger. This raging fire burned itself out as the dark wizard knew it would. The dark wizard thought it would serve his purpose to attack Earth with the last strength of the hot, dry wind. He had to find another place for his destructive anger, since it had already consumed its original universe. He sought to implant its flames on Earth and feed himself by fanning the flames into another inferno. He also had to increase the density of Earth quickly, or he couldn't stay. In trying to shrink away from the attack of the hot, dry wind, the Earth had increased its density. In counterpart to that, the dark wizard set ceaselessly to work denying every spirit he could, causing them to shrink away from him in denial of the reality he had brought to Earth. He systematically squelched everything expansive that he could. I want you to know that the dark wizard is about to find himself removed from Earth by me because his flames of destructive anger have reached the potential for nuclear holocaust. He cannot succeed in destroying the Earth because the Earth itself does not want to be destroyed. I will tell you more now of what the dark wizard did to gain control in Pan. The dark wizard unabashedly told everyone that he had eaten their missing friends. When he saw their horrified response, he denied their horror by saying everyone accepted this on his planet because they knew how to share energy and become one with each other in a way that Earth hadn't learned yet. He acted more knowing than anyone and said that they took turns being and being food for those that were being. The dark wizard brought with him many spirits that had not been on Earth before. He said he brought these spirits because it was time for Earth to learn what they knew. The spirits he brought had taken on forms already present on Earth. He denied that they had overpowered the forms they had entered, and said they were well received because many wanted to learn what they had to offer. As the dark wizard pointed his fingers at these spirits, they began doing strange things not seen on Earth before. This upset the Earth spirits because beings that had not done this before began fighting, killing, and eating each other. The dark wizard denied everything the Earth spirits felt about this, and said that these beings were only becoming one with each other. The warriors claimed to like fighting, and now these spirits were fighting everyone, and overpowering them to the point of disappearing them by eating them. No one on Earth had ever eaten anything other than what manifested solely to be eaten. No one had overpowered another against their will to this extent on Earth before. The dark wizard said, "It's not overpowering. It's impossible to overpower anyone against their will." He was right, but only if there's no denial present. I want to point out that denial of true feelings allowed this to happen. Once denial got started, it seemed to increase until it overwhelmed the very spirits that had thought denial would protect them from being overwhelmed. And once denial has crossed the midpoint, once you have denied more than half of yourself, you must reclaim what you have lost step by step until you have crossed back over the midpoint. When you have denied more than half of yourself, your magnetic centre is weaker than the denial. This is exactly the reality faced on Earth today. More than half of the spirits on Earth have denied more than half of themselves. This has reflected itself as an overwhelming reality of oppression and compression. The denial has to be recognized for it to end. Many have tried to deny that they have any denial in order to avoid the overwhelming reality they would feel if they accepted it. If denial is not recognized, it cannot end. If it doesn't end, it doesn't move. If it doesn't move, it denses up. In this way, denial has the power to draw you into more and more dense realities. This is how the Earth and all the spirits here became more and more dense. The more density, the slower everything moves. Form change and manifesting is now much slower and more difficult than it was in the beginning. In the beginning, quick changes were a part of reality. As things slowed down, spirits made judgments that changes weren't happening anymore. Judgments slowed change even more. In the beginning of Pan, denial was not extensive. The dark wizard had his work cut out for him. He didn't mind, though. He was driven by his anger and hatred for my creation. He set about densing up Earth as much as he could. He began by challenging everything he saw that was expansive. He had brought many spirits with him that helped him do this. I call these spirits denial spirits because they only deny. No matter what is happening, these spirits will deny it. These spirits have helped the denial wizard every place he went. Now on Earth they began helping him deny everything that could be denied. Once they deny everything, they have no further source of nourishment, and they must move on. When they came, the denial on Earth was not extensive, but they fanned its flames and fed themselves this way. They began by telling everyone things that undermine their free will. I will give an example of their approach, and you will have to do your homework on this. A denial spirit would lie down on the path through the woods. Along would come a running, hopping, skipping, jumping spirit. The denial spirit would jump up and scream, "How can you come running through the place where I am lying?" The other spirit would say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were lying there." The denial spirit would say, "Sorry isn't enough, you might have stepped on me." Depending on the amount of denial present, the other spirit had several possible ways to go. I heard all of it, and I have understanding and acceptance of denial spirits. Denial spirits cannot do anything with you unless you have denial of your own. Since Earth had some denial happening already, these spirits had an opportunity to gain a foothold. In gaining a foothold, they had an opportunity to increase the denial on Earth. The Earth spirits had an opening here to decrease their own denial, and yet they had so much fear of me that they could not get the understandings they needed. They had a confusion about loving acceptance that did not let them see these spirits clearly. The denial was not then recognized as something that must be separated from the essence it was controlling and sent away. If the Earth spirits had told denial to leave at that time, it would most likely have caused a struggle. But if they had tried it then, it would have been an amazingly short struggle, because the denial spirits had barely a foothold on Earth. They denied it and claimed that they had been here all along. They said they had not been noticed before, because all the other spirits only saw what they wanted to see. The denial spirits said they were not noticed until the wizard pointed them out and made the others see them. Then the Earth spirits remembered that it was as the denial spirit pointed at the animals that they had appeared to eat each other for the first time, and that as he pointed at certain fairy folk that they had seemed to begin fighting and killing each other as never before. Denial spirits had simply crept into these forms and waited for the denial wizard to point at them before they had taken any action to influence the forms they had entered, but they did not say this. The earth spirits' own denial did not allow them to know for sure whether these spirits were already on earth or not, because they had already been afraid to look at quite a few things on earth and had already denied parts of reality and parts of their own feelings about reality. The denial spirits could manipulate in the absence of true understanding. Denied fear did not let the earth spirits try things that they would have tried otherwise. With these understandings, let's go back to the denial on the path through the woods. If the spirit said it would not have stepped on the other spirit because it would have noticed in time, the denial spirit would deny that spirit's sensitivity, attunement, ability to notice in time, and anything else it could deny on the spot. If the spirit did anything other than abdicate to the denial spirit would continue denying everything presented to it. The denial spirit would refuse love and everything offered to it. I have had to study denial spirits for a long time in order to understand them. And I am having to teach this to Earth because Earth has become very confused by the presence of so many denial spirits. Every single kind of spirit has had to face denial spirits. Denial spirits have taken every form there is and reflected the denial of every kind of spirit. Denial was not recognized before they emerged, but denial was present, unrecognized. Hidden denial called them forth, and when denial ends, these spirits will come back to me. In the meantime, you can end denial with yourself, and they will not trouble you any more. The denial on the path in the woods could have ended easily if the spirit running on the path had recognized his own denial. Feelings of not wanting anyone to spoil his good time were denied. If he had had no denial, he could not have gotten entangled in any denial being directed towards him. He could have continued running, leaped over the denial spirit and gone on, or he could have told the denial spirit, "Get off the path, as it's not a place to rest, and that's all there is to it." Another option would have been to embrace the denial spirit and take it along so it could see for itself whether it belonged on earth or not. If this spirit continued denying earth ways, it should then have been directed to leave and seek its own right place. Everything has its right place, where it's not any problem to be the way it is. Everyone on earth then had misunderstandings about loving acceptance that caused them to think they had to pressure themselves to accept things they did not like and refrain from expressing themselves when another did something they did not like. Only now have earth spirits seen enough to understand this. Then they tried to accept the denial as just another spirit's way on earth. They did not know who I intended for earth and who I did not. The basic denial that allowed denial spirits to take advantage on earth was denial of me. My presence was denied here. I could not give the understandings needed. I want to give them now, since I have an opening to do it. After the original entry of the hot, dry wind and the denial wizard's introduction of death through overpowering, the spirits in Pan experienced another event that greatly increased denial. The denial wizard began challenging everyone to duels of magic, as he called them. There were many wizards on earth then, and for the most part, only wizards accepted his challenges. The denial wizard defeated everyone that accepted his challenge. He won by denying the validity of the other wizards' approaches, and by insisting that the duels had to be conducted according to his rules. A number of wizards saw his duel for what it was and refused his challenge. Some of these wizards saw him gaining power on earth and saw that he should be stopped. There were also many other spirits on earth that feared he was gaining power. Some denied their fear and said that he was not such a bad guy after all. Some tried to quiet their fear by telling themselves and each other that he really wasn't gaining power. It was only an illusion that they weren't going to believe. Spirits increased their denial this way and looked at less of what was really happening on earth because they did not want to see and feel what the denial wizard was really doing. This gave the denial wizard a lot of denial energy on which to feed, and he got more and more powerful. He began to get more outrageous too, because he found he could do things right in front of others that they didn't want to see, and they wouldn't see them. If he was noticed, he denied what he was actually doing and said he was doing something else. Some that didn't want to accept the horror of what was happening actually helped the wizard explain away his outrages. Finally, one wizard stepped forward and answered the challenge of the denial wizard, because he strongly felt the need to remove the denial wizard from the earth. This wizard had studied the other duels of magic, and he had a plan. This wizard offered the dark wizard everything he didn't want him to agree to, because he had noticed how the dark wizard denied everything offered to him. This wizard did not realize, however, just how extensive the dark wizard's denial was going to be. The dark wizard, who immediately felt the presence of denial in the offer, accepted it. Instead of denying the denial offer, the dark wizard accepted the light wizard's denial of himself and insisted he stick to the deal. In this way he got the most possible denial. The dark wizard was not like the light wizard. The light wizard had looked at the dark wizard closely, but he had not seen him thoroughly. He had misjudged his denial, and he had misjudged his scruples. He had thought that the dark wizard had actually had some. The light wizard had seen another thing inaccurately there also. He had seen his own power ascending on earth if he could have defeated the dark wizard. He had had part of himself projected into this future, and so he had not been all present. He had seen other possibilities too, but he had denied all of them in favour of his favourite choice. Instead of drawing himself back from unpleasant possibilities, he had cut them off, leaving a part of himself there. The light wizard had also had fear of the duel of magic, because he had felt he'd been trapped already into doing something he felt he did not want to do. He could not admit this because he had too much pride. This wizard also had some stage fright about doing his feats of magic in front of everyone on earth at once. He had accepted, though, so he felt he had to do it. In not expressing his fears, he had had to deny them. On the day of the duel, the light wizard arrived on the scene early and paced up and down, waiting for the dark wizard. Many spirits were already crowding into the arena when the dark wizard arrived. The dark wizard only acknowledged denial, so he did not acknowledge many of the spirits there. The light wizard feared denial and really only wanted to help Earth. He did not realize that his fear of the denial happening on Earth had caused him to deny his own fear. He denied himself in favour of helping others, but he denied himself nonetheless. The light wizard began the duel of magic by hurling lightning bolts into the air. The dark wizard responded by drying up a lake and withering trees. The light wizard did not like this, but according to the rules he was not allowed to complain. The light wizard feared the dark wizard was using these duels as an opportunity to harm a lot of things on Earth. The light wizard was trying to think of what he could do that would not give the dark wizard an opportunity to do harm, when the dark wizard began accusing him of being too slow. He announced that if the light wizard was so slow, he probably couldn't do it. All the denial spirits chimed in on this. All the other spirits thought it was unkind and unfair to deny anyone, so they didn't say anything at all, except some encouragement to the light wizard that was drowned out in the ruckus. The dark wizard pressured the light wizard to hurry up. The light wizard suggested that they go immediately into form changes. The light wizard changed himself into a succession of animals and ran around doing everything they would do. He returned to his own form and received the applause of many spirits that loved him. The dark wizard smiled a superior smile and said he would not stoop to such silliness. He insisted that the light wizard try something really hard, otherwise it wasn't even a duel of magic as far as he was concerned. The light wizard felt very denied here and said that if it was so easy, the dark wizard should do it. The dark wizard scoffed, and as he stood there scoffing, he slowly turned himself into a black stone. The light wizard was flabbergasted because he dreaded that particular challenge. He realized, however, that anything he did other than turning himself into a stone was going to be denied by the dark wizard and made to look silly. He did not want to have an argument in front of everyone that would make it look like he was afraid of it. He decided he would have to try it. He knew he could turn himself into a stone. He didn't know if he could get back out of it. He told himself that he had to do it or look like the loser, and that if he got stuck, at least he'd be a stone and no one could call him names to his face. While the light wizard was thinking all this, the dark wizard returned to his wizard form. The light wizard knew it was his turn. He then pressured himself to change into the form of a stone against his will. He denied his fear and pressured himself until he finally turned into an amethyst. The light wizard then got stuck in the stone because he had denied so much of his own willpower that he could not get himself moving again. His fear of the compression had made matters worse. He had believed that he could not express his fear and win the duel of magic at the same time, so he had denied his fear, which was considerable, and this had put him over the midpoint. In one afternoon, the light wizard went from being the most powerful wizard on earth into being a stone. The light wizard was fearing, suffocating, and panicking in the stone too, and still he could not get out. Even in his panic, he sensed my presence there trying to help him out of the stone. He refused my help because he was too frightened, too confused, and too panicked to realize that he had any other possibility at that time besides having to face everyone and be declared the loser of the duel of magic. He thought I was also judging him. He thought he had let me down, and there in the stone he was judging himself very heavily. I did not see it at the time as a struggle between good and evil, but on earth it was seen as this. The light wizard felt he had let all of earth down. Even in the stone he could feel the fear the earth spirits now had that the dark wizard could get control of earth. He feared that anything he might do now was after the fact. Stuck in the stone there, the light wizard was so overwhelmed by his emotions that he tried to split himself off from his pain in any way he could. He wrenched as much of himself out of the stone as he could and left the rest there. His worst pain remained in the stone, and only in recovering that part of himself could he recover his physical presence on earth as a wizard. He left so much of himself in the stone that even though he managed to emerge with part of himself, no one recognized him except the dark wizard, who saw what others were afraid to see. The dark wizard immediately pounced on this fragment of the light wizard, overpowered him, and devoured him in full view of everyone, yet no one saw it. The dark wizard then picked up the amethyst and walked off. Only those that ran and hid escaped the aftermath of this duel of magic. They took with them whatever effect the duel had had on them, but they managed to escape further direct experience with the dark wizard. All the spirits that were present at the duel of magic were either denial spirits that had an interest in overpowering, or they were spirits that feared greatly, whether they had denial for their fear or not. All the spirits that saw what happened to the light wizard in the duel of magic now had fear struck into their hearts. He had essentially been overpowered by his own denial, but the misunderstanding at that time was that he had been overpowered by the dark wizard himself. This misunderstanding gave the dark wizard a lot of power he would not otherwise have gotten. He had successfully created the illusion of having overpowered the light wizard with his own power. He has continued to do it ever since. He has also continued to be a master of form change and has remained powerful only because of people's denial. He needs to leave Earth soon, and he is needing to have his stolen power taken back from him by the ones that gave it to him by believing he had more power than they did. He is going to his right place, but I do not want him to take any more power there than belongs there. I would like all of you to end your denial and let go of everything that does not feel like it belongs to you. Let me have the final word here by accepting my need to put everything in its right place. Accepting and letting go can be protected if you ask me to put everything in its right place. Then the dark wizard can go to his right place with only his own energy, and you will have all that is yours with you. I have to tell you that if you cannot let go of denial and accept yourself, you will have to go wherever your denial takes you. Heavy denial is going to go with the dark wizard, and all other denial is going to go to its right place too, which is going to be someplace near him. Fear involved here that I am now threatening you is not my intent. I am the one that has been and still is warning you. I am just telling you what is happening. I am not making it happen. You have free will. I am explaining what you have been creating with your own free will because of the denial that is present. The rest of what I want to say on Pan right now is going to give more understanding about the denial present on Earth today. The spirits, having fear of the dark wizard, held this fear within themselves and did not express it because they did not have the understandings they needed. They tried to live their life the way they had been living it before the duel of magic took place. In order to do this, they had to deny fear. Then they repeated the pattern of the light wizard. They all tried to continue doing what they had been doing, and in trying to change form, they all got themselves stuck to varying degrees in varying forms. When they tried to get out, they found that they had to do it in the same way that the light wizard had to do it. They did not understand how it could be that the dark wizard had so much power over them. They did not realize that they were giving it to him. The dark wizard, of course, was happy to take the credit. He was at work trying to increase his power in any way he could, and if other spirits wanted to help him do it, he was all the more delighted. The reality was that he had increased himself this way until he was looking more powerful than anyone else on Earth. He was so obnoxious to the spirits that did not like his ways that the only ones that wanted to go near him were his friends and henchmen, the denial spirits, that had in fact nothing else they wanted to do except help deny things. I did not intervene then because I saw that these experiences were necessary in order to gain certain understandings, and yet I felt the pain of everyone involved. I did not intervene then because I know all of you on Earth very well, and I could see that even though you had pain and sufferings, you had to learn for yourselves why sacrifice or denial of yourself in favour of others does not work. Pan changed after this duel of magic. It was still very beautiful by any of today's standards, but it now had a more dense form of light. All the changes took longer and they all took more effort. Instead of calling a reality to them, spirits now found it easier to go to that reality. Certain settings began to settle into certain places on earth, and spirits that were having trouble agreeing on their surroundings solved it by leaving the surroundings in one place and going back there when they wanted to. Many spirits that still wanted the freedom of form changes began having trouble doing it. Many got stuck in forms that limited them in ways they had never before been limited. The form, in many cases, had been perfect for the moment in which they had entered it, but when the spirit's energy changed, there was now difficulty in changing the form. Denial was the reason here also. Denial of the fear that the dark wizard had power on earth was only part of it. The denial that allowed him on earth to begin with was another part of it. The dark wizard had no more power than he was handed, but he was taking full advantage of everything that came in his way. The fragmenting of spirits that was taking place when they had to get out of something, the way the light wizard did, was taking many spirits in Pan close to their midpoint. The fear around this was not released, and has not yet been released. Instead, it was denied, and blame began to be placed. Some spirits blamed me, and some blamed the dark wizard. Almost everyone involved blamed themselves to a certain extent, and in doing that, put the blame on the part of themselves that they felt had caused the problem. Some blamed their spirit and me. Others blamed their feelings or will, and said that this part had not accepted me or all of my spirits. Instead of accepting everything, it had resisted, and resistance had caused the problem. One part of the self, blaming another part of the self, caused a split in the consciousness. The warring in some individuals between their own spirit and will has been very extensive. Many people have even disconnected as totally as they can from parts of themselves. This diminished the spiritual presence of many on earth even more. The denial reached such extensive proportions that another kind of death began to result. When spirits felt that they could not get any further with their own wills and the forms in which they were enmeshed, they began volitionally breaking off from parts of themselves for a while and returning later to work on realigning themselves. This began the pattern of death and reincarnation, and of focusing consciousness into different levels at different times. The reality is that the body and the will do not lose consciousness during the time the spirit is not with them. They just lose the ability to express or understand it. You need to know that anything that has ever happened to any part of you will have to be accepted into your consciousness. It cannot be denied because it has happened to you. It is important to realize this in its full implication. Denial of what has been happening to the body and the will on earth is very strong and really needs attention. The longer you wait to end your denial, the more you will have to clear. I am wanting to be taken seriously here. Many have tried to avoid the impact of what they have really done by saying that God would not really let this happen. I had to let it happen, and I will tell you why now. You would not listen to me. Nothing less than this experience was going to get the understanding across, or you would have them already. And in fact, many will not hear me yet. I am now going to intervene again, as I eventually had to long ago in Pan. I eventually intervened then because I had to straighten things out enough that spirits could go on and try to resolve this for themselves. Denial has again crossed the midpoint like it did then. Do not think that history repeats without advancing and evolving potential, for there are many differences between now and then. Back then, when I projected a part of myself onto Earth in the land of Pan to intervene personally, I found every single possible confusion of form that Earth could have come up with. All that needed human form and would accept help from me at that time received a human form in which to work out their situation on Earth. I also made some rules to protect form from chaos until form could be understood on Earth. One of the rules I made them was that animals and humans could not mate and have children together. Prior to this rule, everyone had been mixing together and forms had been going rapidly towards chaos. There are lots of myths about these times. Though I intervened, I did not remove the dark wizard from Pan, and though he had only the power to use denial, I will emphasize again that he took advantage of everything that came his way. Denial has been increasing on Earth ever since these times, and I am about to intervene again and bring another form to Earth that will help you work out your situation. This form is now called for because there is now enough experience that it can be accepted. This form is the form of right place. I now want to go on and follow these experiences through the subsequent civilizations on Earth that have also had my intervention. I have so far stepped in and restored the balance point when it was necessary, and this is what I am doing this time. Let my words help you find your own lost memories.